Hello everyone and welcome to the coding branch. Today I'm going to be showing you something that's going to be saving you an unreal amount of time, and that is the dark art of knowing how to center an element using CSS. In the modern era of everyone using their phones to access web content, almost everything at one point or another is going to be centered. And with it being such a common practice, I don't understand why it feels more complicated than it needs to be. But that's why I'm going to show you how to center an element in any way that I can think of. Alright, now let's get started on the code. You'll see here I'm starting an HTML document that has an h1, a div with a list in it, a div with an image in it, a div with a paragraph in it, and a paragraph tag to end it, all of which have classes that are pretty self-descriptive. You should be pretty familiar with this if you've already followed my Intro to HTML course on YouTube, but if not, I'll leave a link to both that and the code in the description below. In this video, I'll be focusing on CSS though, so let's get right into it. Starting from the top, we're going to be centering some text, which actually happens to be the easiest. For that, we just need to set the text align to center. You can also align the text left or right, but either way, this one is easiest to remember and is very self-descriptive. We'll move on to the next div containing a list, and this time we're going to be using flex. To do that, you need to set the display to flex and justify content to center. Using flex, you can center everything in a div, and honestly, it tends to be my preferred way to do so. Moving on, we'll be centering a delicious looking image of some tacos by using the margin auto. In order to use this version of centering something, you have to have a size declared. It doesn't matter whether this is a height or a width, but it does have to be a physical size. Here you'll see I already had a size for the image. That's just so it didn't take up the entire screen earlier, but it is needed. Once you've declared the size of the image, you'll have to set the display to block and finally set the margin to 0 auto. This sets the margin top and bottom to 0 and the margin left and right to auto. With that, you have another element that is centered and will be on to the next div. We're going to be centering this one using grid. Most people use one or the other when it comes to grid or flex. Some people do use both all the time though. But to be honest, they both do the same thing in a different fashion. That being said, to center something inside of a div, you give it a display of grid and set the place items to center, and voila! Now, last but not least, I'll show you how to center an element using the absolute positioning. Of course, we'll start with a position of, you guessed it, absolute. Then we'll just shift it to the left 50%. And as you can see, what is aligned to the center is actually the far left of the text. It doesn't necessarily work the same as text align, but there are of course different tools for different purposes. Plus, with this one, we were wanting to center it horizontally as well. So to do that, it might be obvious to you by now, but you simply shift it from the top by 50% as well. Alright, now that's going to about wrap it up on ways to center an element, but I'm sure there are more ways to center something using CSS, but in my opinion, knowing 5 ways just about covers all of the bases. If you have any questions or know of any other way to center an element, let me know in the comments down below. And if you enjoy this type of shorthanded content, leave a like and don't forget to subscribe on your way out.